Hey, what's up, y'all? So, in this car chit chat, I am going to be doing a little bit of storytelling time and answering some questions around group practice, profitability, and what was it like in my group practice when either I was clearly the owner and the supervisor, primarily on my own, and then also what did it take for me to delegate some supervision off my plate. So, if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and tap into this car chit chat. Hey, what's up, y'all? So if you are new here and you never, drove with me in this car chit chat, clearly with my eyes on the road, but I do have a 1 hour drive to go to the correctional facility. I thought this would be a great time to check in and also talk about just like what's been going on behind the scenes, specifically as it relates to questions around group practice ownership, leveraging your time. And let's keep it real. A lot of therapists go into having a group practice because they want to scale their time. I even hear therapists saying like, I want to have passive income. And I'm like, there's no such thing as passive income when you have a group practice. But all in all, there's one main theme, which is still time freedom with the ability of, increasing your revenue over time. So let me back things up to make everything make sense as to why I'm even, about to share this little story. And so I'm a clinical psychologist. I had a group practice years ago for 5 years. I did shut down my group practice in 2018. I will walk y'all through as much as I can on this drive and car chit chat, what the process was like in terms of seasons in the group practice. And what I will say, just so I can make sure that I give you your daily dose of like what exactly you want to hear more about, based on the seasons that I share in my group practice, I want you to tell me in the comment section, or if you're listening to this on the audio podcast, go over to YouTube and tell me under this video what season you specifically want to hear more about so that I can walk you through what was happening during that season, because we can learn a lot by listening to a case study. And I have a lot of case studies to give. So, all right, so let's go ahead into it. So I recently started getting back into the newsletter game. I don't call it a newsletter though. It is just like you're on my list, meaning you're in my community, because I don't like to say you my email subscriber. And when you're on my email list, you can get a variety of things. You can be notified when I'm having a CE workshop, when I'm doing a live workshop, when a new podcast is out, because my whole goal with community is to make sure that you're getting your daily, weekly, or monthly dose of information that you can actually implement in your business, or at least get motivated in your business, right? So I have a wide range of information. So recently, for 2 weeks now, because this is March 11th, right? So for 2 weeks now, I have been sending out a weekly, let me teach you something via email, because not everybody may have time to watch a video, but let me give you a little daily dose. And the first one hit well, and it was about the 4 profitable streams of income in business. And I had a significant level of feedback to that, just reminding people what's possible. It's not like I introduced anything new to me, but it was just me leading them into what was going to come next. So last week, timing is everything, but I did not time this intentionally. It was just in the order that I wanted to give. There's been a lot of chat within my community with my clients around, are you a clinical supervisor or are you a group practice owner? And so I released that podcast on Thursday of last week. And then I was also going out of town to Atlanta to be the day 1 keynote speaker at the Millennial Social Worker Conference. So again, there was no tie-in to this topic. I just know that a lot of people have been asking me these questions behind the scenes, because I will have more people ask me this question on a coaching call or in DM, but not really nobody wants to ask it under a video, right? But I know y'all, dealing with this, which one am I today? Now, the subject line is everything. And I needed to make sure with this particular topic that y'all about to feel my wrath, right? What do I mean by that? You need to know that your license is at risk, because sometimes we just simply don't want to state that we're doing one thing in our business and you try to mask it with something else because you don't feel like doing the paperwork. So in Atlanta, I did record a sit down talking about the clinical supervision and group practice. So I'm not going to break all of that down, but I'm going to loop it into like some of the things that have come up that remind me of what happened in my group practice. So I got, even from the keynote speaker on day 2, she walked up to me, Miss Candace, and she was like, oh my God, TK, so sorry I missed your keynote yesterday, but girl, I did open up that email that you sent on yesterday. Then I've been interviewing people for our coaching programs, and I'm getting the same feedback. Even if someone's not interested in group practice, they like, yo, but that last email. And I was like, okay, so y'all like to get information on, is y'all license at risk? I mean, that's how I actually started my coaching business, because I recognized that when I would put out content around, let me help you, it was like crickets, or maybe it was like, no, I know it all, kind of thing. I don't know. But I noticed that when I invested, and I'm going to tell y'all this little trick. My clients know this. I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all. So I was in a coaching program, and I gravitated to like different levels, but I was in a coaching program that I invested $24K. Within that $24K, we had the first year, because after the pandemic hit, it was different. We had 3 in-person masterminds, but the masterminds were not 2 to 3 full days. It was 1 day mastermind and 1 day live event, meaning she had a big old conference, but that was lit because I get to meet other people. So I loved it, right? We only, and I don't want to say only, but we got 1 VIP session. Now this person, like for 2 hours now virtually in 2025 is no less than 10,000. And that's an alumni discount, right? And so, I mean, they're an 8-figure earner. You know what I'm saying? It's so I value their expertise. At that time, I was able to go to their beautiful home, and boy, was it a vision board home. And I had a in-person mastermind, which she no longer does. And it was my day to do 2 to 3 hours. I did it with her and a team member. So the part that I want to get to is, we go into these masterminds, it's just like a coaching session, but it's in person. And they're like, we can only focus on 1, maybe 2 things, because we want to help you build and flush it all out and answer any questions that you have and coach you through it, which I admire. So my question was around, I was starting to enroll people into our one-on-one coaching container for scalability for group practice and digital products. But I also knew that I needed to put something else in front of them to warm them up beyond my podcast. So we mapped that out. Then she said, all right, you got another hour. We mapped that out pretty fast because I was a fast action taker. So I did a lot of work before I got there. And I said, well, I also just want to build and continue to build an online presence with therapists knowing how to show up on social media. At the time, I was doing a lot of social media workshops. And it's because I have been on Instagram since Instagram started. Now, my follower account, whatever, that I don't even look at no more, like that thing done capped out for like 3 years. It's been the exact same amount for no lie, 3 years. But now I look at like, what is the quality of the people that I'm attracting on that platform, not how many people I'm attracting. So I've learned that with not paying attention to vanity metrics anymore, because that'll hurt your feelings. So I'm really about just like getting in front of the right people. So sorry if y'all can hear my windshield starting to rain. So I told her that I'm an APA certified instructor. And this is now me talking to her processing team members, not the coach directly, but the team member that helps with funnels and marketing. And they said, let me get this straight. Therapists have to get licensed in order to have a private practice. I'm like, yes. And she said, and they have to get CEs to stay licensed. I'm like, yes. She said, this is golden. And I didn't understand what she meant. And what eventually she was telling me was, you have and you've created a product that not only people want, but technically a part of it is what they need. And they can, what I call double dip, meaning you can get CEs for your business at the same time. So we mapped out like how I was going to start utilizing CEs, and I did the doggone thing. I would host probably out of a 12-month calendar year, I would host 10 CE workshops starting in April or May of 2020, all the way to the end of 2022. Talk about go hard or go home. Then I transitioned my energy into another segment of my business. But the big aha moment was when I gave her one of my topics for a free opt-in that I'd use for Facebook ads and for social media. It was more focused on what y'all telling me y'all want as providers. Like, I want time freedom. I want my ideal schedule. I want to make all this money. I want, right? But at the end of the day, you can want something, but that don't mean you're going to do it. So she said, let's just turn it around. And I was like, oh, like reverse psychology. And she was like, yes. So my ebook was, or my download, it was a checklist. My checklist was called 7 things, pretty much, I don't know how it was phrased, but like 7 things you can do to like attract your ideal clients on social media, like, or protect your license. And she switched up like 3 words. And then it turned into 7 things to avoid marketing, pain point, 7 things to avoid to, 7 things to avoid to like keep your license or something like that, or not keep your license, whatever. And so I kid you not, your girl went back to the hotel room because I left the next day. I was literally only out there to go meet with her. I knew some friends in the mastermind. We met up for dinner that night. They came and got me from her house. They took me back to my hotel room. I left the next morning. So I spent that whole night and on the plane mapping out the whole process. Press publish, organic traffic, and Facebook ads. Your girl like quadrupled, if not more, my quality of leads, people opting into my list. I grew my email list, like, to me, overnight at a level that I had never seen before. And what that showed me was my clients, a lot of them, they desire to have positive and abundant things. But I have noticed that even from my live streams to my coaching calls to my podcast, it seems that what sticks is like when a parent yells at a child. I'm not yelling at my clients, but it seems like when I get into more of like, come on, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like, talk like that. It's like that sticks versus, you know, me trying to go into my soft girl era, coach, like that. It don't work. Y'all help me. Like, understand this. So I say all that because of where we are right now with group practice. When I tell people what are some great ways to diversify your income, even with a group practice, it's like, oh, that's too much. Nah, I'm good. You know, and then they come back later for systems. I'm the queen of systems. But when I put out an email and say your license is at risk, oh, the floodgates come open. So let's get into seasons of group practice now that I've been like yapping for like 12 minutes. So seasons of group practice. So when I first started my group practice, I'm going to probably lose track of numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, when we edit the video, I'll just go ahead and put the seasons right here. Okay. So season number 1, and then we'll like add on, team. Look, y'all see a real one edited video. Like we'll edit the rest. So season 1 was actually building out profitable systems for my solo private practice. And the reason why this is foundational and important is I always use the example of a boat. If you want to step off the boat and do other things, get off and go to an island. For most of you, step onto another boat, aka another stream of income. You want to make sure that your first boat won't sink on purpose. It's going to hit some bumps. It's going to need some fixing. That's entrepreneurship. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the tools to fix it in an efficient manner. And that's where foundational systems come from. Foundational systems can be simple as, okay, like you have clients and you make money, but do you know how to get more clients once those clients close? Okay. So that was the first season. It's just like making sure that, honestly, I was running my practice the same way with documentation that I was working at these jobs. Because even if I did not like management at my jobs, I've never really had a job that I did not like. It was just more of like how stuff was ran, and it was chaotic. So I prided myself on taking my learning lessons, even through my training as a pre and postdoc student, and saying I would like never put a student through this, like not intentionally. You know, people make mistakes, but I'd be doggone if I'm a hire somebody in a state of chaos. So in season 1, I was also working at a correctional facility. Actually, I was working at the one I'm going to now. So, but I'm a contractor now. And I was working way more than 60 hours a week. I can guarantee you I was probably working 70 hours because I underestimated sometimes how many hours I work. So y'all can calculate this. If I'm working 40 hours a week just with the regular hours, then I choose to take on one more shift, let's just say every other week, right? So that is 68 hours. That doesn't count drive time. And at one point I was driving to the camp 2 hours to, 2 hours from, and I was working overtime there too. So that is a whole other ballgame. So, but let's just take the 68 rounded up to 70. I also was teaching, so that includes curriculum, that includes like grading papers online, going to the campus. I had hybrid courses, like all the things. And I was teaching at any given point at 2 to 3 different colleges on different weeks, because some of the campuses that I was teaching on was like 5-week classes, 8-week classes. And then there was one class, a community college, that was the traditional like 15-week, once or twice an evening or something. Okay. So needless to say, my schedule was all over the place, and that did not include like pop-up random streams of income that I was trying out. So 80 hours easy a week. Okay. So during that process, I grew up my private practice. Then in the next season, I was working with a young lady, because I started my private practice when I was at the camp, and then I ended at the hall before I left the county. So in my season 2, I would carpool with a young lady at my job at the juvenile camp in LA County. We would take turns driving. And so she saw me like pretty much build my practice from scratch, because I opened my practice as soon as I got licensed, because I was starting to build it way before that, low-key in grad school. Your girl was advanced. And so she had asked like, hey, do you think that I would be a good candidate for like private practice? And I said, yes, but what do you want to do? Who do you want to see? And she was like, well, I know you see teenagers like the ones we see at the jail. They just don't have a jail record, So maybe I can see those kids. And honestly, she really wanted to see girls. She was like, do you have girls? And I'm like, that's really all I have, is a lot of girls being referred over boys, So the second season was, and this is where it gets a little tricky, I brought her on and I was her clinical supervisor. And then, I don't know how I learned this, probably a old video on Google, YouTube. I started learning about payroll. Well, I knew about payroll. I can't lie about it. I knew about payroll because I had other businesses for me speaking. Okay, so I wasn't new to entrepreneurship. But I knew there was something that I needed to learn about payroll. So I'm a self-starter. I don't need a course to tell me when to log in. Okay, so back then, there was no mentorship like me. Meaning I couldn't find a me. So I used my resources and I just started piecemealing stuff together. That's why it took me so long to grow. And after it wasn't until I hired her friend, because she had a specialty in substance use and she wanted to not always see substance use clients. She said, I want to see people who have depression and anxiety, but just not on drugs. And I was like, all right, bet. So that started leveraging my time some more. So what we started doing, it went from, sorry for the rain, y'all, but it went from one-on-one supervision to group supervision with the opt-in, because I had time, or I made time, to do one-on-one supervision if they needed it, like for high-risk cases. But for the most part, they were also trying to leverage their time. And it was 2 of them, so we would meet for 2 hours once a week. It is pouring down, y'all. So what ended up happening? So once I hired the second person, I Googled something and I ended up with a payroll company, ADP. Some of the things that came up is me paying for ongoing HR services that I didn't realize I signed up for. You need to understand your contracts. It was $500 a month, right? When I signed up for them, I paid $1,500 because it gave me an employee handbook, which I needed. And that's what I learned about like corporations. I had somebody incorporate me, like all the things. But season 2 for me was learning that I was actually a group practice, primarily because of not just the responsibility of the clinicians, but more importantly, the paperwork of HR. And I was just like, oh, I'm like a manager and a supervisor. This is a whole ass group practice. That was my wake up call. In season 3, once I clearly realized all of the paperwork and things that I learned, season 3, I just kept hiring over time, from interns to licensed professionals. Over 5 years, I had 8 therapists at a time. Now, in my next season, I was individually doing veteran assessments. That's how I leverage my time, because I realized I don't want to keep getting long-term clients. I want a mix of long-term kids and adults, families, couples. But I also, and I like different types of clients because I'm just a person where I get bored real fast, right? And that's not a great trait to have as a CEO, because there will be some things you will do in your business in which you're going to get bored and you got to persevere and push through it. But what I'm referencing is if I'm seeing clients full time in a practice for like 20 to 25 hours a week, I'm not trying to see all teenagers that are depressed and isolating and cutting. You feel me? And so I need like the couple at 8 o'clock to like, you know, we can work through some communication problems and, you know, we work through some drama. And then, you know, we work with the women on being able to be assertive. And then we work with the teenagers on learning how to communicate with their parents and do their grade work. You know what I'm saying? But I like a mixture. And so besides that, what I started doing in the third season of, I think I'm on 3, in my next season of private practice is as I was hiring, I intentionally, now I'm getting into niche. I started to intentionally hire for pre-doc, and I had to do this based off the veteran contract. They allowed us to have post-doc, not pre-doc. They allowed us, or was it? It might have been pre-doc or post-doc, I can't remember. But they allowed us to have students do the assessments, but they had to be a psychologist in training. So that's how we were able to maintain 8. 4 were master's level, marriage and family therapists, social worker associates, back then they were known as interns. But 4 of the other people were also psychologists registered like associates to our group practice. And so that was season 3, and I learned a lot. In that season, I misplaced $50,000. That's when I learned the importance of not just employee taxes, because they had to be W-2 through the board. They weren't postdoc. They had to be W-2. But I also realized that I didn't understand cash flow with other people, and I'm not going to let somebody not get paid in my business. So that meant that, I mean, luckily I had the teaching jobs, but could you go a month or 2 without getting paid on time? And even though the money came through, it was like it took a minute to come through. Like if we did the report for the veterans and we had to turn over our report in 48 hours. So I needed to hire people who knew how to ask questions, knew how to assess. Of course, we trained them, but this ain't no 3-month training program, you feel me, in terms of like veterans. So they had to be sharp during the interview process for me to know that they were the best candidate for that particular like training. And then if we had any low fee scale intakes in which I'm not going to see low fee clients and our interns could not see people on certain insurance panels, then they would get like some of the clients that we couldn't see as licensed providers. So that was that season, and I had to learn cash flow and then relearn again payroll systems. And that's when I started to invest in CPAs. So I'm saying all this because it led into the last season I'll share with you. This isn't the last season, but this is the last season that I'll share as we're chatting. And then let me know if you want me to expound more based off what I shared so far. But what I realized moving into the next season of group practice was that I really needed to hone in on systematizing the group practice. I really needed to get really good at leveraging my time when they're onboarding, which is what I teach our group practice clients now. So a lot of our clients in our coaching programs, they have clinicians in their group practice. That's not the problem. Well, I mean, it may be a problem, right? But that's not majority of their problem. A lot of what I find when I get in conversations with them through a consultation about our programs is that when I describe, like, what would it be like if, like I say the example Macy's. I only say that because my mom used to work there and she told me how she was trained one random year when I was in college. She went there to work for the hell of it or whatever. Like, and I'm like, don't ever do. She was like, I would never go back there again. But she went through like an independent training and she was doing like the seasonal like time because she just didn't want to be at home. So I remember her saying when they onboarded her, they put her in a room with a cash register and an old school video. And I was like, what? And she said, I was in there for a whole week. But what it taught me was there are plenty of companies that if you set it up correctly and you put people in the right resources, you don't have to sit down with them like old school HR ways to walk them through your processes. And as long as you have a pulse on what's happening with your team members, you can leverage your time even in the onboarding process. So that's what we put in place for me first. And then as I started to get coaching clients that were more interested in going beyond solo practice, I built my coaching business based on what my clients told me that they wanted. And as I just, like I'm doing right now, because I do better with helping my clients see what I can do through storytelling, case studies. I mean, I'm a therapist, right? So I have been forever my own case study because I've went through a lot. But what's nice is my clients have said, well, do you still have access to that what you build in your group practice? And I'm like, I'll find it. And if I don't find it, I'll recreate it because it's in my head. And so I keep everything on Google Docs. So it's just maybe in other accounts. So I would just move it over. Now we got AI. I didn't have any of this when I first started. But now if I wanted to, I could just plug it into AI and say, hey, I just need you to update this form for this year based off of what I want them to know. I would talk it out so it's my information, my intellectual property, and just say, can you help me organize my thoughts so that I can give my clients this system in a systematized way. Now, helping therapists grow group practices, I have not yet used AI except for updating the job description template that we give them. Outside of that, like everything that I do with AI is in my head. I just want to make that very clear. And I just want to make that clear for you all, because if you're using AI to create products and create services, you really have to ask yourself, are you implementing your special sauce to help you stand out so that you don't look like everybody else, right? So I share all those seasons because it leads me to the, are you a clinical supervisor or a manager, like a CEO? And I realized in season 2 that I was both. But in season 1, I was just making sure that I had my CEs to be a supervisor, right? But as I start paying attention to, oh wait, as a manager of a company, of an agency, I need to have team meetings, not just team supervision. It needs to go beyond clinical. I want to train them. I go above and beyond. I don't like, so what we start doing, for example, in our monthly consultations, I would call them in. We would all agree on like a weekend day. I would bring in food or whatever. And we would do it. Actually, it went from monthly to bi-monthly because at some point we have the same staff. But we used it as didactic training. So the first 30 minutes would be like administrative updates, whatever, round robin, what's going on with y'all, clinical. Then the 45 minutes would be a little bit of clinical, what intakes were coming in, all that kind of stuff. Are you happy with your caseload? The second half would either be didactic training, or it would be personal development or professional development, where I would talk to them about, and I'll use one example, is one of the clinicians, I felt like she no longer wanted children, but she didn't say it. And I knew that I was getting a lot of adults and couples at that time because I had converted from teenagers to like splitting my time with adults. And so I had, called her out in a beautiful way. And I said, I see that you have a full caseload of children, but I know that you have some spots opening up soon. Do you still want to see kids? And she just looked, and I said, be real. Like, we have other people here to see kids. They can go on a wait list. What do you want to do? What's going to help you develop into, the fire therapist that you are? You feel me? Like I pour into them. And she was like, well, I'm kind of scared to see couples like you do, but I would love some adults. So that led into, all you got to do is give me an opening. That led from only children to serving women. Then she ended up developing a specialty into postpartum, come later. But that also developed into, she recognized that I was getting a lot of couples and I was the only one getting couples. And some of those couples needed to see somebody one-on-one, and they liked it that we have multiple therapists. So because she was close to licensure and she was a psychologist, and some people had preferences of who they wanted to see and what their expertise was, she became like my partner in crime. So there was a bonus season that I'll bring up. The reason I'm outlining what happened with this clinician and why it's important that you pour into from a clinical supervision and managerial perspective is that there came an opportunity where I realized that in order for me to fully step into my CEO-ness, I need to pull back even seeing so many interns. I need to figure out a way to leverage my time with these interns, but I already brought them on. So I always have been taught to start within, meaning look within your own ecosystem before you go look at somebody who's new that you got to train. This individual was like 1 month away from licensure. She's been in the managerial role at other places that she's worked. So I started talking to her more one-on-one, just poking around. Is she interested? And she eventually said yes. I said, I need you to get these CEs. I'll pay for them for clinical supervision. Then we had a couple of more meetings to answer any questions around like what is involved in clinical supervision. Make a long story short, I trained her. She started participating, and she wasn't a partner in my group practice, but I trained her. She ended up coming to now 1 out of the 2 interviews when I was interviewing clinicians, licensed or unlicensed, so she could see what's the process of who I'm looking for. She also got so comfortable and confident that she also started asking questions during the interview process, to the point where she was able to give me her insight, like, I don't know if they're going to be a good match based off the other clinicians that we have in the group practice, and I respected her opinion. She was never wrong, and we were always on the same page. What that resulted in is, out of the, at 1.6 postdocs that we had, she took 4. I want you to hear that. If I have 8 therapists in total, she's one of them. And then I have a few more, let's just say 2 more that's licensed, and then the other ones are postdoc. She took 4 off my plate. Well, the question comes up, well, how did you pay her? You need to talk to your CPA. You need to do a financial forecasting before you hire, ideally, or hire again. Because some of y'all done already got yourself in a hole after you done hired, and now you're trying to step off the boat and go add a stream of income like a digital product. Like, stop doing that. Like, take your time, build out your systems. And so, you know, what I did to not overwhelm her, because you got to protect your team members, is I knew that it would take a certain threshold of brain activity to do clinical supervision with someone who's never worked in a private practice, just graduated, is a postdoc, they're studying for the licensing exam. Like, these are clinicians who got a heavy hitter like situation in the next 6 to 12 months. And they're coming to work in a private practice where they get time flexibility. You know what I'm saying? So we have to train them. So what we end up doing, or what I end up doing, instead of her having to meet the quota for 15 at minimum, they can work more, but 15 is part-time. And instead of her needing to work at minimum 15 hours a week for clientele, I reduced it to 10, because I asked her, did she need less? And she was like, no, that's good. So I reduced it to 10 hours, and then we agreed upon just a flat hourly rate. I'm just going to throw out an hourly rate. This wasn't her hourly rate, but let's just say if the hourly rate was $50. The reason why it wasn't $35 like an agency is because I knew that she would be taking a lot off my plate that would leverage my genius zone. And to me, all that does is help me go make more money. And that's how I want y'all to think about investment. And part of your investment in your business should be, how can I build out my business where my business starts to work for me so that I can make more money while working less? It will not serve you if you go out there and try to do what I just said in this video, but you don't know all the intricate details. You don't know what automated HR system we put in place to onboard these clinicians, and you try to do it on your own, and then you realize that you've hit a cap, either with hours you can work, or you find yourself working more because you realize, I'm a whole ass manager and I'm a clinical supervisor of pre and post licensure. I don't know what your thing is, right? But decide, do you only want to be somebody's clinical supervisor? Because if that's the case, they don't work in your company, period, point blank. If they work in your company, you have a group practice, even if it's one. So let me know in the comment box, what was your biggest takeaway? If you want help with scaling your business, hop on a phone call. Now, I'm going to say this because I'm speaking to my scale clinicians. You can still check out our premium therapist mentorship program if you are in the growing phase of a private practice. This means you already got clients, but you know there's some missing holes before you step off the boat and go scale and add another stream of income. So if you would like to grow your existing practice to position you to scale, or you are ready to grow out a new or existing group practice, maybe you want to step into digital products, but your first stream of income got to be streaming. If this is you and where you are, then we are currently enrolling in 2 of our programs, one for private practice and one for scalability. Now, I will assess your readiness for either or. You got to try to figure this out on your own. So all you need to do is check out the link in the comment. I pinned it to the top. check out the description box and fill out the application to then apply. We'll hop on a call. We'll assess your needs. And if you fit the need for one of the programs, because we want to make sure that, it's a good match for you, right? I always want to look out for your best interest. I don't want to waste your time. So if I can help you with where you are and where you want to go, then I will show you how to enroll in one of our programs, okay? If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comment box below. Love y'all. Subscribe to the podcast, like this video, share it with another therapist, and I will see y'all later. Bye.